Hi my love, so my camera is about to die, so I want to do this super quick, but I am doing a very bright, bold, just oh my god, amazing icy look today. I'm very excited by it. I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and really the only thing that I had that I wanted to do was a bright blue lip, and I did not know what I would go with it, so I kind of did some research and saw other people and what they did. Some people did super warm looks, some people did super icy looks. I kind of went in between, so I did like an icy inner corner and then a very warm cut crease. So hope you guys enjoy it, and if you want to see how I got this look, just keep on watching. So since I already have my brows done, I can go ahead right in with primer. I'm going to use a clear primer. I like to use a clear one when I want to do like a cut crease because it's just not as thick or as much product on your lid, and it's less likely to get cakey. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm using the BH Cosmetics one just because it's what I have handy. And I'm just going to apply this to my lids like normal. When the inspiration for this look came to me, I wanted it to be very simple and just have certain focal points, which would be the inner corner and the lip color that I'm going to use. So I'm going to try and keep the rest of it pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and use my Morphe 350 palette. This is the original one that has both shimmer and matte shades. And I'm going to go ahead in with the lightest color. It's just a matte kind of creamy, not necessarily white, but just a very light skin tone shade. And this is going to be my highlight. I'm going to tap it under my brow. Since I want to do a floating cut crease and I have a hooded lid, I can't really do too much going on in the crease. I have to keep it pretty simple, which is fine because that's what I want to do with this look anyway. And I don't want it to come out, whoops, super orange. So I'm not going to use these type of shades. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take these two right here to start off with because they have a warm tone, but they're not necessarily like an orangey warm. And I'm going to do this a little bit higher in my crease. It's okay if you bring it down because again, we're going to cut the crease, but I want to keep this as high as possible because this is the type of cut crease look that you really want to have noticeable over your lid when you have your eyes open. So when I open my eyes, I want to be able to see all of that color. And start to wing it out. I'm also using a brush that is kind of pinched on the like center of it. This could work as like a fluffy shader brush as well, but because I have smaller lids, I don't tend to use it for a shader brush. I actually prefer to use this to get a more concentrated crease. And just kind of pull it up along your natural eye shape. Even though we're going for a cut crease look, you want it to be blended on the top. So I'm going to go in with a brush that is fluffier so that I can blend, but still has kind of a defined point. I just wanted to show you the two that I have here. You wouldn't want something like this. This is the MAC 224 brush because it's just super flimsy, super fluffy, and it doesn't have that concentrated point to where it's not going to just get blown out into oblivion. You want it to still kind of have some type of shape. So I'm going to use this one. This is a Real Techniques one, but like the MAC 217, the Sigma E25, those also are a little bit more of a concentrated fluffy brush. So those type of brushes would work fine. And I'm just using the same colors for now. I'm not deepening it up at all. Just going back and forth between those two colors that I showed earlier and just building and buffing. Once you're done with your transition, you can go ahead and start deepening up the crease. I'm going to go again with a shade that's not too red or warm, but it definitely has a bit of like depth to it. So this is just going to be our definer shade. And really tap off the excess because you don't want to go too heavy-handed at first. You still want this to be kind of a softer look. And I'm going to focus it on the outer half of the crease line that I have. So even though this portion of my crease kind of pulls out, you want to make sure you're pulling it out to there as well. Even though I want this to be soft, I do want to add a teeny weensy bit more depth. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this shade right here. This actually kind of almost reminds me of Max Embark, but it's just a little bit more brown and a little bit less red. But it definitely is that like deep, like just warm brown shade. So I'm just going to take a bit of that, again, concentrating it on the outer portion of the crease. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we're going to clean it up, but you do want to start adding a lot of depth to the outer edge. And just go little by little. You don't need to do like a shit ton of product at once, like I tend to do. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on my cut crease now. So I'm taking my NYX eyeshadow base in white, and the way that I do my cut creases, as you probably saw in one of my previous videos, is I just take the actual product that I'm using to cut my crease. In this case, obviously it's the NYX base. Do that and look up as high as I can, and I'm gonna get the shape of the highest point of my cut crease. That way, if you go any further down than this, you're not gonna see the crease when your eyes are open. If you leave it the way that it is now and only go up from here, that way, no matter what happens, you're always gonna be able to see the entirety of the crease when your eyes are like just open and just at rest. So just do it this way, and I promise it's gonna be easier. And then you can go ahead after that's done and just start like applying the product and smoothing it out. Before I go ahead and apply this to the other eye, since this is not going to set down and it's going to stay creamy and will crease if you don't set it, I'm going to go ahead and apply a shadow on top. Let me just kind of fix any creasing that already happened in the 2 seconds that I was talking to you guys. And I'm going to set it with a light beigey tone. I want to keep everything as far as shadows go matte because I'm going to add the shimmers in later. So I'm going to take this shade right here. It's the second one down. And I'm just going to tap this all over my lid. Alrighty, so I went off camera and I did the things that I knew I couldn't do in frame because I can barely do them on my own off camera. So I went ahead and I did a gold liner. You can use whatever you want. I used the Mayron Paradise paint in gold, and I just applied that onto the line in between the lid and the crease. And then I went ahead and I did some black wing liner, which absolutely is horrendous. Like, I absolutely suck at wing liner, but hopefully when I do the lashes and everything, it's gonna hide that part. I wanted to do the wing because I wanted it to kind of match with the crease. I don't do wings for a reason. I don't like the way that they look on my eyes unless I do them super, super thick, which I wasn't really trying to do because I want the focus to be on the shadow, not the liner. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and move on from that. And I did use my NYX matte liquid liner for the actual liner portion. And then again, the Mayron Paradise paint for the gold. I'm gonna go ahead and take the NYX Hydra Touch primer. This is one that I've been actually really liking. I do feel like it gives decent hydration. I'm gonna take just a tiny bit of that, and I'm just going to rub this into my skin using my hands. For my foundation today, I'm actually going to take it way back to the Maybelline Superstay. This is the original one before they reformulated it like twice, I think. Yeah, because they did the Better Skin, and then now they have a Superstay version. But that one is different in formulation, which I'm kind of bummed about because this is one of my favorite foundations, but it is getting kind of old, so I'm trying to use it up. I'm going to take my... what is this? The Real Technique sponge. I have two here because I have one for powder and one for my foundation. But I'm going to firstly go ahead and just start applying this all over my skin. I just take it from the back of my hand. and kind of pounce it all over. And because I'm going from my hand to my face, the sponge will soak up a crap ton of the product. So before you go ahead and start applying more to your hand, go ahead and just blend on the areas that you need foundation, even though you feel like there's really not much coverage coming out, because that will just get rid of any of the stuff that's soaked into the sponge. And then you can see where you are as far as coverage. I used to just like pile it on because I was like, oh, this is just soaking up way too much. But then I realized that there is still some on the sponge. So just at least go ahead and go all over your whole face first. And then you can go ahead and add more product and you won't get as cakey or thick of a look. I want to try a new technique today, so I'm going to try it on camera. Let's see if it goes well. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I'm going to take my Naked Skin Concealer by Urban Decay. I'm taking Light Warm. And I'm just going to apply this where I would normally highlight, which is underneath my eyes, center of my nose, a little bit on the forehead, a little bit on the chin. Okay, a lot on the chin. And then just a little bit here, because I noticed that since I do have like almost black hair, I do get really like dark on the upper lip. It's just because of like, you can see the skin pigment, or the hair pigment like going through my skin, so it kind of creates a dark shadow. So you do want to highlight there. And because I find that I don't always get the coverage that I want from my concealer, I'm gonna try and let it sit for right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and do my bronzer, and I'm gonna use the cream bronzer first. So I'm gonna take Oaks on You number 804 by Wet n Wild. I'm going to apply this to my hand, just really thick, warm it up, apply a bunch of the product to your hand, just like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take a brush, this is a Sigma one, but anything really will work, and pick up that product and then apply it. I find that this method of applying the cream bronzer is a lot easier for me than doing like a stripe and then trying to blend it out, just because the product does tend to get a little bit like hard once it sets, so you can't really buff it anymore. And see, it looks a lot more natural now. And the method that I'm testing, if I don't know if I said it, but if you weren't aware, I'm trying to let this dry down a little bit. I can't remember if I said that or not. So I'm just going to apply my bronzer. The only place that I'm not going to apply it, that I would normally try to attempt to do it, would be like my nose. I typically, if I'm doing cream contour, do my nose, but I'm not gonna do it today because I don't want it to get really muddy if this highlight thing doesn't work. Once all of that is blended in and done, I'm gonna go ahead and start blending out the concealer. Hopefully it hasn't been sitting for too long. And I'm gonna start on the areas that I don't need as much coverage. So that's gonna be the center of my forehead. I think it blended out okay. It's a little bit hard. I may have waited just a tiny bit too long. After all of that is done, I can go ahead and start setting my face. So I do get a lot of creasing here. So right before I set, I just go in and make sure I tap out any remaining creases. Not really blending, just making sure that it's smooth. And right around my nose, I do that. And on my chin, because I get some creasing there. So now I'm going to take a bit of my powder. This is the banana powder, I believe. I can't remember if this one is the J-Cat Beauty one or the Makeup Revolution one, but just one of those, just yellow tone powder. I'm going to apply this all over my skin to set my makeup. At this point, a lot of people go in and kind of spray their face down if they're going to use setting spray because they don't want it to be powdery. I don't like to do that until I blend my powder products on top because it's just going to give a sticky base again instead of having it be smooth to get the powders to blend. But then also I find that when I set my face and then spray it, you're not really setting the face because you're going from a wet foundation, setting it with a dry powder to really lock it in place, but then immediately going in and applying moisture back in, so it's really not going to set the foundation the way that you want it to. So leave the powder on. You just want to go in, and what I did after I pressed powder on was I just kept pressing. Just keep pressing and pressing and pressing until you just have a thin layer of powder all over your skin. Now you can go ahead and apply your powder face products, then go in with the setting spray. So I'm going to use the Wet n Wild contouring palette in Caramel Toffee. And I'm just taking the bronzer shade. This is super intense, so go ahead, tap off any extra and just apply a bit of this to the cheeks. Since I already have a bit of contouring from the cream contour, I don't need to use as much of this, and it's going to give me a more natural look because it's gonna look like it's coming from within. The powder bronzer aspect is just really going to make sure that the color really pops, because sometimes you can get like this toned down effect from applying the powder on top. So you just want to go back in and just make sure that the pigment is still showing up. I do like to go ahead and cut my contour with some powder, so I go ahead and with the other side of this is also yellow tone powder. If you don't have this particular product, you can just go ahead and use whatever face powder you have. But I just like to use the flat edge of my Real Technique sponge, kind of run it in the powder, and just cut my contour. I'm gonna let this product sit on my skin just while I'm doing my blush. I don't like to leave it on too long, so I just do it while I'm doing my cheeks. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the Makeup Revolution Ultra Blush Palette in Hot Spice. So it looks like this. I'm gonna go ahead and take a pinky tone. I think I'm gonna mix these two because this is a little bit deeper than I want, but this is probably going to be a little bit too light. So I'm just going to mix the two. And I'm using a very big dual fiber brush, so I kind of just go between them and apply that to the back of my cheekbones. I'm really not going up. Once I have all of the product placed onto the back of my cheekbone, then I can start pulling it up just to blend the edge so it doesn't have a stark line. After that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my eyes before I do my highlight, because I like to do my highlight when I set my face with a setting spray. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my Kiko Skinny Fit Kajal pencil. This one is in the shade number 3, and this is just going to get applied to the inner tear duct of my eye. Super messy because I just want this to be a base for the shadow that I'm going to put on top. Before you go ahead and set that with a shadow, you want to just take your brush that you're going to use and just buff out the edges slightly. Otherwise, you're just going to set a harsh line and it's not going to look cute. So you just want to lightly go over that. Now I want to do a very bright blue on the inner corner, so I'm gonna go and do a throwback if I can pick it up and take my 120 palette. This is the original one, and I'm gonna go in with this shade right here. So it's a not necessarily like a sky blue, but it's not super deep either, because I do want this to be more of like a baby blue. So I'm gonna take that shade, I'm gonna really pick it up onto that brush and apply it to the inner corner on top of that base. Now that the blue is placed, I'm just going to take a little bit of a brown liner. And I'm going to run that along the lower lash line. Again, it doesn't have to be super perfect. Oop. But try not to be super messy like I am. Ugh, we'll fix this. Just buff it out a tiny bit. Now with a stiff brush, I'm just going to go ahead and take the contour color that I used on my cheeks, because that's what I have handy, and I just want to add a bit of brown to my lower lash line to balance out the eye look. I went ahead and just wiped off the foundation from my lips so I can apply my lip color, and I'm going to be using the Wet n Wild Liquid Catsuit in the shade Boo Blue, which is just a very like bright sky blue. And I'm just going to apply this to my lips. I'm not going to use a lip liner because I don't have a blue lip liner, so we're just going to go on in. For the final two steps of this look, I want to go ahead and apply my highlight and some lashes. I'm going to do the lashes after my highlight though, so I can apply some spray. I have this spray right here. This is not the Urban Decay Chill Makeup Setting Spray. This is the Mario Badescu Rose Water. I just put it into this bottle because it's a smaller bottle than the rose water that I have, so it's just easier for me. I'm just going to spray my skin like anybody would. Just like that, and then I'm gonna fan it just a tiny bit and then go ahead in with my sponge that I used to set my face, and I'm just going to lightly pat this into the skin. And this will just push the setting spray into your skin, and it'll help kind of prevent your makeup from moving, since sometimes when you set your skin, if you go and make facial expressions or anything, since it's still wet, it's going to move the product underneath. So when you do it like this, you dry the setting spray faster and push it into the skin all at the same time. So now that I have that, and my skin is going to be slightly damp, not super tacky, not wet, just slightly damp, I'm going to go in with Winter Falls in LA, and this is a Wet n Wild highlight. I love the Wet n Wild highlights, and I'm just going to, if I can find my brush, apply this to my face. I'm just going to take a small brush and apply this to the highest point of my cheekbone. If you made it this far, just give me 2 seconds so I can pop on some lashes, and I will be right back to show you guys the absolute final look. Alrighty guys, so I hope you made it to the end of this video. Don't mind my hair or anything, I still have to finish getting ready before I leave, but I wanted to show you guys the final look before I do that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. It came out exactly the way I imagined it, so I'm super happy with the way it came out. It's definitely very different for me. I almost never do a bright, like colored inner corner. I don't always do like a floating cut crease. That's just not the type of look that I go for, and the blue lip is just amazing. I'm so happy with it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Don't forget to thumbs this video up and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. Also hit that bell button because that's apparently the only way you guys get notified of videos nowadays. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye everybody.